Hi, everyone. This is the Voltha TSC meeting for June 16th, 2020. We have a few items on the agenda. So let's get started. These meetings are recorded and posted to YouTube, so keep that in mind. The first item we have on the agenda is sort of more of a notification. The system that we're running Garrett on for Cord, so the garrett.opencore.org is having some sort of hardware trouble in AWS. So they've asked us to move that instance to a different node. And we're going to take the opportunity also to upgrade that at that same time, because the current Garrett version we're using is quite old, and it's no longer under support or security updates. This will make the new UI, if you've tried it, it'll make it required. It's been improved substantially since the version that we have. And another thing that may be an issue for individual users is that your copies of the Git review or repo tools may need to be upgraded to support the new version of Garrett. So you may need to do that locally on your system, and we also may need to do that in the CI process. The planned time for that is this Thursday, the 18th, in the evening, so between 6 and 10 Pacific. If you have any questions about this, please let me, Zach, know, and we'll help address those. I think this will go fairly smoothly. The biggest change is probably going to be adjusting to the new UI. Are there any questions about that?
So we just need the latest version of Git review?
Yeah, if you may need to upgrade that. I have been doing some work with other projects that have a newer version of Garrett, and I did have to upgrade my version of Git review.
Oh, okay.
And also my version of repo for that to work.
Yeah. Do you know which version actually works?
I would go to the newest version. That's what I did at the time. I can go look up the specific version, but the newest one has worked both with the older Garrett and with the newer Garretts that I've worked with.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
Okay. All right. The next item on the agenda was from Devmalia Paul, this configuring parameters for raising alarms from the Northbound interface. Devmalia, I see you're on. There was some discussion around this. Would you like to walk us through this?
So this is basically for a proposal for an generic set value API in the Voltha Northbound. This API, we need this API just for the purpose of configuring certain alarms, like ITU phone alarms, because this alarm needs to be configured in order to receive indication. So in the earlier proposal, there was an API which was specifically for configuring alarms, but as per the reviewed comments on this document, this was later changed to this generic set value API. So as you can see, the API we're talking of is set ext values. This one is almost parallel to get ext value, but the input and outputs are a bit different. So yeah, so it takes a value set proto message, which for currently just takes one parameter, that is alarm configs. If later on we need to configure other values, then we can add it to this proto message. So basically this is the entire intention behind this API.
Yeah, and I think we should add that it is intended to be extensible to future use cases. So that was the rationale. Yes. The rationale that we used behind get ext value. It was initially for a specific purpose, which was to serve the ONU distance, the ranging feature, but we implemented it in a generic way with the idea there would be other values to get in the future. I think it's the same with this set value. Right now, it's starting with just one alarm, but over time, this API could expand to support other alarms and other configuration things that are not necessarily alarm related. So it's the general purpose setting mechanism for things that don't fit elsewhere.
So for example, Voltha is going to have the ability to set and get these alarm values?
Yes, we need to implement that.
Yeah, and that's currently what Voltha does with the ranging. There's a get ext value Voltha command, and you would give it like you'd say get ext value distance, and I think it would give you distance, something like that. I don't remember the syntax offhand, but this would be similarly exposed on Voltha.
And if there's a set ext value, is there a corresponding get ext value for the same value to retrieve the value before it can be set? Is that the thought?
Oh, go ahead, Maya.
I think that is not captured here, but I guess it would be logical enough to implement that in getExt view.
Okay, so these are this is a value that can be both read and written to, as opposed to, I think the other one that was mentioned earlier for the ranging, that's a read-only value, correct?
Yeah, that's definitely right for ranging. That's read only.
Okay.
So we could assume for now that all settable things should also be readable. I don't know if that's a guarantee in the future. If we could eventually run into some situation where there was something that we could set, but there was no permanent store of that information, no ability to read it back. I wouldn't know for certain that situation won't arise.
Okay, that makes sense.
I guess that sort of goes to keeping the proto messages somewhat independent. There was a brief comment on the end where David suggested, is it the case that there's a match between the two, and we could use the same proto messages for both get and set? And I don't think that's necessarily the case. Certainly, there are read-only things. There are read-write things. Whether or not there's write-only things, we haven't encountered one yet, but it could happen.
What's the next step for this? Is it implementation once people have approved this document with whatever changes are needed?
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, I think it seems reasonable to me. Does anyone else on the call have any questions or comments?
Okay, then. I think we can probably move on to the next issue. This looks good. David was going to be on, but he is delayed in another meeting. So I think the next item on the agenda is the Juror review. I think, Sarav, you were doing that last week. Do you want to continue doing that?
Sure.
Okay, let me make you co-host.
Okay. Right. Okay, so I believe you can see my screen. And at this point, so if you remember from last time, we were going through Voltha 2.4 issues. We had gone through a few of the epics, I believe, up till scale and performance tasks. And so let's just continue with the rest of the epics that are listed under Volta 2.4. And then we'll come back and look at the diffs from last week to this week. So starting with the next epic is there's only one item that is still remaining in alarms, events, and stats for Volta 2.4. And it's from Rohan. And if he's not online, maybe Scott, you can tell us more about this story.
Sure. So this has to do with the performance metric configuration API. I thought Rohan had completed this. Let me see. Yeah, I don't see him online or anyone else who could necessarily speak to it.
There seems to be one open getter change.
Okay, so perhaps it needs a review. Yeah, so this was the PM config API for enabling and disabling performance metrics. Rohan did submit a patch for plumbing this through to Voltcuddle. I think there were some parts of it that he found that were unimplemented in either the OpenOLT and or OpenONU adapters. So this is, I would say this is the task to implement the parts in it in OpenOLT that he found that were unimplemented. So I'll have to look, but he was calling for reviews on something this morning, so that could be that this one is ready to be reviewed.
Okay, thank you. In-band support, I think we already covered sort of test tasks under the test automation brigade. There is one story over here that wants to make the VLAN that is used for in-band control configurable. I did see a comment from Manuel saying that really it doesn't need to be configurable. That's just an add-on. And since nobody's actually picked up this task, I'm going to actually move it to the future, just because really the work that is left is to do the testing for in-band. And we can add on the configurability in the future. Okay, the next brigade or next epic is regards to multicast and multi-tcont. I can give a fairly good idea of, since I run the brigade, so I can give a pretty good idea of what these, where we are with these. There's a bug over here that's actually been around, and we really need to triage it and see if it's still valid or not. So I think this bug is okay. The bigger issue is the flow remove bug, that when we remove flows, they are not propagated to the adapter. So the logs are over here, and I think SN from Netsia is going to take a look at that one this week. Yes.
Is that for all the flow, or it only affects the IDLT flows?
This, I believe.
Yeah, I saw it for all the flows.
Okay, then it may be something related to the same thing that we're investigating for a scale. I'll take a look at it.
But we have been, okay, hold on. I was thinking this is for multicast related flows, right? We have tests in our test infrastructure that add and remove subscribers. So when you remove subscribers, you delete the subscriber flows, say, for example, in the AT&T workflow. That clearly works, right? So
this was specifically for a Turk Telecom workflow where we had, a slightly different kind of flows compared to AT&T. So where we have a PCP match to in the flow. So something was going.
Isn't that I wrote comments on it about the PCP fields? I think.
Yes. So yeah. So
Yeah.
that's the problem. So as you also pointed out in a separate mail, the flows are a bit different for Tech Telecom, and when they were getting removed, we saw problems.
Okay.
But in general, there is no problem for AT&T or Deutsche Telekom workflow.
Okay.
But
So the
Go ahead,
sorry,
Mateo.
go ahead.
sorry, is the problem from originated from the VoLT application or from the core? I mean, the PCP value is empty there, and the new hashing function in the RV core returns error because of this, because there's a PCP field there without a value in the flow. So is it, I mean, a problem of your application to put the correct PCP value into flow, or is it course problem? So I'm not sure about that. So how can we solve the problem?
I think SN is investigating that.
Okay.
I have not spent much time on this one.
Yeah, that's why it's still to-do state. So I think if SN investigates it this week, we'll tackle it in the brigade meeting next week. But to answer your question, Mateo, I don't think this is related to the issues that you're seeing at scale with the AT&T workflow.
Agreed. I took a quick look. This seems to be an error with the flow, or with the flow itself, while we are just seeing some issues at scale.
Then there are about 3 stories that are related to removing groups. This was about removing flows, but this is about removing groups. And there's some issues over there. That's that. And then another story for unit test cases, and this feature about extended VLAN tagging OMCI message. So that's already in progress. Okay, so not much more to add in these brigade stories. There are some release engineering tasks regarding Helm charts, but mostly created by David to update the Helm charts. I see this is in progress. Yeah, most of these are in progress, and I don't think David is still on yet, right? So, okay. Andrea is also not on, so does anybody else know about this liveness pros on the Honos Helm chart?
Andrea is still on PTO today.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. So let's talk about diagnostics.
So just one thing regarding the Helm charts. I noticed this morning that some Helm charts are referencing some container images that are not the last one, even though they are referencing like CLI flags and options that are related to the last container image. We should double check, but I don't think we have a test that use the container images that are specified in the Helm chart, but I believe all of our jobs override them with master. So if we don't have that job, we should create it to make sure that whatever is specified in the Helm chart actually works.
Okay. Something you should bring up with Suchitra and the test automation brigade. Okay, moving on. There are a number of stories in diagnostics and troubleshooting. Do you want to go through them, Scott?
Sure. So starting With the first one, should support short command line arguments. Well, it is explained relatively well in the description. Be able to support things like Voltha dev lists instead of device list. Just a shorthand.
Okay.
Yeah, it looks like I was supposed to look into what Infosys was doing. I would say this probably is a future item. This doesn't seem a priority, and I'm not sure who's going to work on this.
So it's assigned to yourself.
Yeah, it's assigned to me, but I may end up taking myself off of it if I mean I'll probably take myself off of it at the end of the month if it hasn't been started on. If I do have time before the end of the month, I could start on it, but I would say among the things that are in here, it's probably near the bottom.
Okay, so I'll move it to future for now.
Yeah, I think that's safe.
Any one of these you want to keep or move to the future?
Well, let me see. Remove use of getters. I can get that done for 2.4. Support nested sorting. I'm just waiting for a review on David, so let's keep that one. Ensure Voltha supports hardware test and functional test. I'd really like to get that one done. So let's leave that as is. Logical device list ports, I fixed that, so we can mark that as done.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Saurav.
And I guess Rohan is not on, but do you know about these?
Yeah, so on his patch for plumbing through the PM config stuff to Voltha, there were a few things we flagged that we'd like done additionally. So these were those additional things, so they're recorded in Jira and not forgotten about. The first one is improving some error handling. The second one, investigate setting the frequencies. Both of these can move to future if necessary. I would have to check with Rohan to see if he has time to do these before 2.4. I can query him on that.
Okay. So based on your discussions with him, I'll leave it to you to move them to future.
Sure.
Okay? Thank you. Okay, moving on to multiple NNI support. This is actually a fairly big, that's why it's an epic. And really there ought to be a lot more stories than what you see over here. And this story doesn't actually say much. We kind of need to break this down. But we had thought we will get to it in 2.4, but it's really unlikely that we'll have multiple NNI support. For now, I'm moving this to future. There's just so much more work that we need to get done in 2.4. Okay, there is work going on in other access technologies. For example, EPON in the technology profile. Takehiro, do you want to give us an update on what's going on?
Oh, yes. This is EPON Tech Profile support, and this is in progress. And
Okay.
I'm going to complete the regression test this week or next week. And implementation was almost complete. That is.
Okay, so it's going through the reviews now, and I believe it is, right? I think Girish has been reviewing the code.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So you expect this to be done before in 2.4, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a few stories in the OpenONU adapter in Golang. Of course, this is again a big epic. Work for it will continue beyond 2.4. Actually, most of the stories you'll probably find, in the future version. There are a couple of stories that are mentioned over here. I see that one is assigned to Matteo for related to BBSIM. Do you want to talk about it, Matteo, or is there anyone from Atran to talk about this?
So I think this is low prior. Oh yeah, this is actually an issue in the OMCI library that is setting the wrong message length in some cases. The OMCI trailer. There was a small patch to address it, but it doesn't address it completely. I never got back to completely fix it. This is actually something that is addressed in the Python version of the adapter, so it's not causing any breakage at the moment, but it's not speaking the proper.
So this is a problem not in BBSIM, it's a problem in the adapter itself?
It's not really a problem.
It's like it's in the OMCI Go packet library.
We are not
which is used by BBSIM or not?
No. This is in the OMCI SIM library. That is still basically the dump of the OMCI messages that we got from Ario Renew. That has never been replaced with the OMCI Go library. And this is something that Michael at Adran found when they started using the OMCI Go library on the other side, because there was this mismatch between the messages. But they worked it around in the same way that is done in the OpenMU Python version of the adapter. So it's not really blocking anyone.
Okay, so I'm going to move this to future since we have plenty to do regarding scale, and this is not hurting it right now, so we'll come back to that. Traffic profiles, again, yeah, this can just go to the future as well. Okay, Volta core cleanup. I hope Kent is online. And let's start with Ken. Unnecessary clones. Is this something you're looking?
Yeah, this one I think we can close that because a lot of the changes, the cleanup and everything that is being done indirectly are removing the clones. So that I think can be closed.
Okay. All right. Okay. What happened?
You have to post your comment.
Oh, yeah. Okay, coming back to Kent.
Okay. So a lot of this particular one, replacing the list with maps, is actually being done by the next one. So I've basically pulled out flows, groups, meters, and logical ports. I want to pull out the regular device ports as well. So this is in progress.
So this is in progress with one more patch coming in for ports from devices. Okay. And that is taking, sorry?
Yes, and this one, with the list of maps, it kind of becomes a separate issue. Sort of once the other one's done, this will remain as the potential of fixing thing like changing to use maps in the protos. sort of in the APIs between components. But I think this will be future. I don't think we'll do this.
Sounds good. Okay. So this one is in progress and we'll get another patch, and that should be in 2.4. Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Last couple of epics, some ONAS app improvements. The purge meter API in ONAS, that's from Andrea. I think he has worked around this for now, so we'll just move this to the future. Okay, liveness probe for ONAS. I think we already talked about this liveness probe, right? Is Kishore online? He's not responding either. So I did see something about liveness probes from Andrea, and Kishore told me that a new patch is submitted.
Sort of this, Amit. Yeah, so Kishore is working on this. There's a review ongoing. I think David had given some comments on that.
Okay.
And he's reworking on those.
Okay, so it's in progress, great.
Yeah.
And then there is a Mac Learning app that we are talking about with Gamze. And there is still work to be done for that. There is a submission, but we're still actually working on the design for that. It remains to be seen if this will be completed in 2.4, but for now I'm going to leave it there. Okay, so the last brigade is the device management interface brigade, DM interface brigade. And looks like there's a couple of bugs that are in progress. There is a closed buried patch, but since Andrea's on PTO, I'm not really sure what's going on over here. So I will follow up with him later. So that covers.
Sort of,
yes,
I
go
could
ahead.
speak on that. Yeah. So we uploaded the first version of the Protos.
Yeah.
Right now, the Jenkins build is failing because the UT is failing on that. I think there's some problem with that, the setup for the UT. So I'll work with Zach mostly. I think Zach should be able to help us. That's what Andre told me before we went on vacation. Yeah, that's what it is.
Thank you. Zach, you're aware of that? Yes.
Could you, Amit, I think I'm not sure I fully understand what you mentioned.
So there was a problem with the job that there are no unit tests implemented yet.
Yeah, there's a patch out.
Collecting.
Yeah, I made a patch to fix that, but I don't think it got merged. So I can merge that, and then your patches should pass.
I thought I merged it.
Okay, let's look at it on Slack.
The make test works in my environment, but when Jenkins does it, I think it's failing for some files.
Okay.
Yeah, it's basically not publishing any test result, and Jenkins is complaining about that.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of going through the epics. We still have 50 issues that are in progress and 36 that are waiting to be done. So we will keep filtering over the next couple of weeks. We have 2 weeks till we branch out 2.4. But most of the blocking items, as you can see, have been resolved, other than this, where we are waiting for a new version of BAL. I think it's called 3.4.7.5. And then there is the sanity test that we are working on for Turk Telecom that is looking pretty good. So from last week when we were doing the JIRA review to this week, so basically after June 9th, there were this many stories that were newly created. So I just wanted to see, so there's a number of them that are in progress. And I just wanted to ask about some of the ones that are not in progress right now. David is not online yet, so I'll skip that one. And so Owen, Matteo, this is one about sometimes ONUs are not getting enabled when we run with 500 of them. Do you want to talk about this?
Yeah, so that's something that I've started seeing last week. It's better described in the issue, but basically it seems like that sometimes we receive a message in the open new adapter before then the adapter, the device handler is created for that device in the adapter, and that is a little surprising. This still needs to be investigated.
Okay, so the scale measurement, the Baby Siemens Scalability Brigade is currently looking at the delete flows issue, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And then this is another one to look at, right?
Yeah, this seems not to happen as often as the flow issue, so we're prioritizing that.
Okay, but is it related to this one? Adapter is not configuring the gem port on some ONUs when also running at scale?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because this only happens if the previous one don't happen.
I see.
Or at least we measure this one only if the previous one.
So I see a patch from Girish on it. So I think we are going to continue to move this to in progress, and we are going to continue to investigate that. Okay. There were a couple of, there was a story created, so Girish, is Girish Kumar online? Okay, I don't see him, but this is related to Jaeger. We do have the TT workflow in progress. That's great. Mahir, do you want to talk about reorganizing functions in, is this the core?
Yeah, in fact, it is in progress. I uploaded a patch for that. It's in review, but the hardware tests are failing now, I think.
Yeah, we seem to have a regression in our, yeah, we are investigating. All day yesterday, we were investigating. I think pretty much every single test we have is failing. So for example, if you see 2.3 based tests, they're passing, but every test related to master is right now failing. So we have some regression in current master that we are investigating right now, and that's the reason why hardware test is also failing. Okay.
I think we found that Andy zeroed down to a patch, a Helm chart change that I did last Friday to enable Turk Telecom workflow.
I was about to ask about this task. Why did we revert it? So
okay,
this is the reason.
Yeah, apparently the change was to enable Turk Telecom workflow, which is disabled by default, but somehow it creates an inverse effect, and the Turk Telecom workflow gets enabled. The support gets enabled, and it causes some problems.
That's okay. That's good to know that we have figured out, we've zeroed down to where the issue is. That's great. All right. So yeah, so this should get completed pretty quickly. I think we talked about this already regarding Voltha logical device. List ports is broken that Scott said he's going to get to.
That one you actually marked as done. I think maybe you need to refresh.
Yeah, okay. you're right. It's gone. All right. Yeah, flow remove, the issue we talked about that in the multicast brigade. Matteo, Shrey is trying to add some retry options to BBSIM.
Yeah, that's actually in progress. It should be done today or tomorrow, I believe. And basically is to provide an option to have a behavior similar to the hardware so that the ONU will keep periodically send people and DHCP packets unless they
So you can manually trigger another EAPOL and DHCP through a BBSIM kettle option, right? So this is to just do it periodically?
This is to have the same behavior as in the hardware, that if I send out a packet and I don't receive a response for a certain amount of time, then I try to send another equal start or a DHCP discover.
Okay. All right. I think we just talked about these Rohan's stories. So Scott, you'll take a look and see if they need to stay in 2.4 or get moved, right?
Yeah, I've sent him a message.
Okay.
I'll update as soon as we hear back.
Okay. And then Girish, this Maple connection errors, Maple chip connection errors. Is this in progress? It seems it is, right? But it's been like that for a while, has it not?
Yeah, so this needed updates to newer CPLD versions. So we are talking to HCore.
Right, okay, sounds good. I think we probably heard back from HCore this morning. I haven't taken a look yet. All right. Okay, with that, we are done with the Jira review for now. Please do keep working on updating Jira, and we have 2 weeks again. Reminder: we have 2 weeks until we go trees and branch out for 2.4. Okay, thank you. I'm done, Zach.
Okay, David isn't on, but he wanted us to at least start discussing this. He can probably give more background, but I can try and get. So this 12-factor app was to store, config an environmental variable. And that was sort of the recommendation. He had 2 patch sets that updated in different ways using different libraries to configure these, I think, using either both the command line options or environmental variables. So his big question was, do we want to follow this approach? And I am not sure.
The point is that a priority right now? Is that something that is causing problem that we cannot live anymore with CLI flags, and we need to put effort into changing the CLI tools and moving to environmental variables because we cannot manage stuff? If not, I would say let's do it after the 4.
I think I would concur. I'm not sure what the timeliness of this.
I would agree that right now we have 2 weeks to go, and we have, for the last 3 weeks, we have had lots of issues with our automated tests, and we need to go through a period of stability, and I don't want to bring in more changes.
So having looked through these patch sets, the changes themselves are actually quite small, and my understanding is that they're basically ready to go in. The only thing that's actually changed in terms of the Voltha code is how the arguments are read in. I don't believe there need to be immediate changes to the Helm charts or anything like that. So it's just a question of, I believe, my understanding, and Dave will have to verify this, but my understanding is that it's basically done and ready. And if we just choose one, it can be merged with very little interruption. That doesn't mean we shouldn't delay until after. It's just that it's more of a preference question.
Me, my preference would be to delay it because what David did is with the core. Maybe we'll need to look at other containers as well, and then figure out like which one works the best way. And looking at the 12 factor as well, one of the biggest thing about it is that the code doesn't change from deployment, from development environment, and all those things. And currently the code doesn't change because even if we don't use environmental variable, I think that's it's something that we can just delay until 2.4 and have a bigger discussion about it.
Well, at the very least, I think David should be part of this discussion. So for now, we can say that there is reluctance to do this before 2.4. It's certainly not a requirement, and we can continue discussing it, say next time at the next TST meeting with David around.
Okay, that sounds good. We don't have anything else on the agenda. Are there any other things people would like to discuss? Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.